Okay, for chapter 10 and possibly 11 if we can get through there. And also in the big book, Shanna, what chapters?
44 and 45.
I thought it was just chapter 10 today.
Yeah, we'll see how far we go with it. Did you not read chapter 11? That's okay. Did anybody else not read chapter 11?
I got about halfway through it.
Okay.
Did you say it was chapter 10 and 11?
10, and then we'll get
Bit of
through
11.
11 if we can, yeah.
I read 11, but I was just saying I skipped that huge long aside, which is most of the chapter, because I was like, I'm all good with like the free will thing. So I just kind of glanced through that long aside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's start. The intention for this morning is to come together and hold compassionate, loving space for each other so we don't criticize or judge. We just lift each other up, seek to really understand this material, and come from a place of acceptance for each other. So let's go around and do a check-in and see what everyone thought. Daniel, you want to start?
Sure.
Cool.
I didn't find chapter 10 too bad. Chapter 11, I don't know, I took a long time reading it and I'm not sure if I understood everything. Well, I think I did, but we'll see. But it took me a long time, I guess, wanting to read chapter 11. Not sure why, but yeah. But I finally read it last night. 1 in the morning.
Nice. You're a trooper. Awesome. And how about you, Sylvia?
Yeah, I feel like in chapter 10, that the whole idea that we are consciousness for me took on more resonance after reading the chapter. So that was good. And then the second one, like I said, there's just a huge aside, which I think is really trying to talk mostly about free choice, and free will. And I sort of thought, I'm in a good place with that right now. I don't think I can cope with a long discussion of that because then it might actually create questions that I didn't even have. So I just skimmed it really briefly and I was like, that's maybe something I need to come back to because I think that's going to confuse me. So since he was coming out saying, look, there is free will, let me explain why. I was like, you know what? I just am good accepting it right now. So yeah, so that's what I did.
Cool. And Suzanne?
Yeah, I thought chapter 44 for me was fine. I understood that the next one was a little more complicated. I tried to really read it and understand it, but I was getting lost in all the reasons why it can only be true. And
yep.
I did, after a while, just decide that, like Sylvia, it's like I accept it. I get it. I don't have to be able to explain to somebody else why this can only be the way it is. So I don't have to know that part enough. I get it. We have free will. That's how this works. So.
And how about you, Bojana?
Well, I found I really almost forgot what I was reading about in chapter 44 by the time I went through this brain strain, as Tom called it, of the chapter 11. I found it really, really challenging to understand everything. Just like Sylvia said, that the side was really a killer. But I mean, it's very, very informative, and I've learned a lot, and I'm hoping to dig deeper into it with you guys. So glad to be here.
Awesome. What do you think?
I was like, what's the point?
Of life?
That's the name of the chapter.
I loved it. I didn't know we were supposed to read chapter 11.
We said it on the last call.
Yeah, but the text message said, so I only go to most up-to-date information.
No,
people.
we didn't even say anything in the text message.
But I do want to announce that I have a new way of highlighting, because I'd be darned if I do highlighting all these freaking lines. So I've now moved into a square bracket type of highlighting. You can barely see it though, like square brackets around a paragraph.
Oh.
Yeah, there's no more of this underlining each sentence because that's ridiculous.
Too much work.
Danny, you're not muted. You're muted.
Oh, sorry. I said you should talk about, you should write a blog on your journey of highlighting and your techniques.
Yeah, it's evolved since year one. I can tell you that.
There you go. You're learning and growing. Well done.
Yeah. Anything else, baby?
No.
I can't really remember. It's coming back to me now when you guys tell me, but I can't really remember what we read.
Chapter.
Oh, I remember that.
Well, what's the point, Vanessa?
Yeah, but that's why I like this book club, because we get to revisit the material. Obviously, it's going in one ear and out the other. Down and absorb. Good. I'm glad to be here too. So let's jump in. Anything stand out on first page 149? What page is that for you, Bojana?
That'll be page
399.
Okay, cool. Okay, yeah.
Well, for me, the first paragraph really kind of embodies what we've already learned so far, especially the sentence as it goes, as we drop our ego delusions, we become more Om-like, an embodiment of love and caring. This is the goal. This is our purpose. So he really kind of starts, for me, it helps me set the stage again. Okay, so where are we? What are we talking about? Because his writing gets really deep and complex, and sometimes I lose kind of his thought pattern, but he has this ability to kind of, for myself, just really kind of bring it back. But I'm not sure what AUO means. What is that?
Unbounded.
Unbounded oneness.
Oneness.
Absolutely unbounded
Oneness. Yeah.
So can anyone explain what we're talking about there? Is that like the higher level of Om, where Om is generated?
No, I think it's the simpler version of Om when it first started, before it had
Us.
Awareness, right?
When it had this very dim awareness and such, and then it evolved into AUM. So it's sort of the starting point.
Okay. So then what is TBC down in the next paragraph
The
mean?
big computer.
Didn't you say that before?
When you were reading it, yeah.
And that's all my questions for today.
What's the point?
I don't know about you, but I did highlight the page where he gives all the explanations on the acronyms and stuff, because every once in a while I just have to go back and go, what is that one again? So
I think it's at the beginning of each book, isn't it?
yeah, it's on the very beginning, the list of acronyms, foreign words, phrases, and stuff. And then he's got the page where there's the first mention, if you want to go back and read the description. But I just had to put a bookmark there so I can go back and like, wait a minute, I forgot what that one is.
Yeah.
They can show me after.
Okay.
I think for the next book, he should have like emojis for all these things.
No.
I
No.
Is Om the one with the hair over its head?
Okay. Next page over. Page 400.
Wait, can I just say, I just want to say one thing. So like with this, we were just talking about like our highlighting things. I've been trying to like do little synthesis, because it's so, I was finding like I was highlighting so much.
Yeah.
So for me on this page, and I'm not doing it every page, it's just when I feel like, I want to remember that, but can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm never going to remember, like, I can't remember a whole paragraph. So I just wrote on this one, we are 1, individuated, 2, have free will, and then we are consciousness and have to evolve. Like, that's it. So I was like, okay, that's really good. So I have to remember we're individuated, we have free will, but we are still consciousness and we have to evolve. So if that's at all helpful.
Yeah, that is.
Nice.
That's the point, isn't it?
We can now finish the book. We've gotten to the point.
What's going to happen for the next book and a half?
But in the
gritty details.
In the second paragraph, I like the sentence. They go, we exist, operate, interact, and individually evolve, modifying ourselves to occupy lower entropy states, all within the immense digital mind that is consciousness. We are consciousness. And that's the evolution of what is us individuated digital chunks evolving to lower our entropy, to lower the overall entropy of So that's Om's existence, is to evolve and grow as such.
Mm-hmm.
Yes? No? Maybe so?
Yeah, needs to evolve and grow.
And it uses us to learn and grow.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
Which means if we don't do it, we can be purged.
But that's very rare, very rare.
That's only in the States, you guys. That's only in the States. Canada, we don't have purge.
Okay, so the next page, Shobha then?
Oh, that's
400?
we're done with page 400.
No. Oh, sorry, we're still on page 400. We're on 400.
Okay. Well, I have highlighted the point here. So the last chapter, the very last paragraph, almost. No, the one before. Sorry, it says there is a point and purpose to your existence. You have a mission. That your consciousness has the potential to evolve requires that you have free will in order that you might succeed. AUM must allow you to fail. AUM has no choice. To survive, you must risk death. I like that. I mean, it's it basically, this is the whole purpose. To evolve, to have the mission, and to allow us to use the free will to make mistakes and a risk. That's what makes the life so interesting and challenging at the same time. It really spoke to me.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
I highlighted it too, Bojana.
Mm-hmm.
Same here.
Did you highlight it or bracket it?
Square bracketed.
Okay.
I have
Do
three
you square bracket everything now, or do you highlight certain things?
I just square bracket the book.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, the paragraph before that, where he says, do you now understand experiment in consciousness? Yeah, why those experiments in consciousness, to understand why experience consciousness are important to Do you now see why it is vitally important to you and to me and to every other chunk of individuated consciousness that you learn, grow, and the quality of your consciousness. We are all in this thing together. All are part of the whole. The whole prospers through the contributions of its parts. Yeah, so I really like that because it helps me to see how we are all on the same team. It's a friendly reminder to see that, you're just as important as me, I'm just as important as you, we're all equal. Not only just us humans, but also all living sentient players on the planet, including all the animals and the critters, right? Yeah, we were watching Planet Earth last night. You guys ever seen the series?
I got voted off the island, and they didn't want to watch Planet Earth anymore. So
no, that's not true.
Okay.
No, the kids. Well, one of the kids fell asleep during it, but but it's fascinating just to see all the creatures on this planet and how they are. And our son got really sad. He was like, I can't watch it. It's too sad because they kill each other, right? For them, it is survival of the fittest.
Mm-hmm.
But that's only because they have to do that. We were explaining to them, like, we don't have to do that, and yet we still do. But I think we're coming around. Like, the whole movement, the whole, veganism movement is really grabbing hold and a splash. Yeah. Is anybody here vegan?
Hasn't taken hold that much.
Yeah, but it will.
I'm being volunteered to be vegan.
We're not the age group. Like,
Bojana,
if you look,
become a rebootable.
Yeah, no, but it's a younger age group. It's a huge percentage. There's like, if you ask like people in the like 20 age group, if they're either vegan or vegetarian, so they bracket them together, but vegan's growing really fast. It's literally like a third now. It's like a crazy number that is unexpected.
Yeah.
Germany is the leader.
Say it again.
Germany is the leader in vegetarianism.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting, eh?
That is interesting because they love pork.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they're also super society minded, as compared to the US, which is very individual minded. They're very society. Like if you can sell it to them that you have to do this as a duty to your society,
They will.
they're much more willing to do that than some other societies.
Good point, yeah.
Huh. Really very neat. Yeah, you're right. It is the next generation. Yeah, absolutely. And our kids too. They're always wanting. They're like, yeah, we don't want to eat animals.
I'm like, eat your wine gum, eat your Twix. You don't know what's good for you.
But yeah. Okay, what are we on? Anything else from that page before we move forward?
The only other thing I highlighted is that your spiritual growth is not a group activity. It's personal transformation achieved only in personal terms.
Had that highlighted as well.
Which makes me sigh. Although I think this book club is helpful because it can help you to understand, and no, it doesn't help you to transform, but it can help you to maybe keep your focus and become clearer on concepts and such. But yes, I understand that it is personal and not a group activity.
But I think it does have a group element to it in that you can't just transform alone in silence. You still have to, for example, you have to express it. So if you fundamentally change in a certain way, then how you interact with other people is going to transform, and then you'll get feedback from that. And so you kind of need the learning lab of other people in order to, continue. So at least you don't have to be alone in a box.
Yeah, the other thing is you never know how much you're influencing others by some of these things that you do, just like other people who maybe have influenced you. They don't realize that. I just came back from Reno to see some of my grandkids, and one of them, who's a freshman, wrote a paper on who her, was a model for her as a person. And I was really surprised because she wrote it about me, and I was thinking,
Aww.
oh my God, I didn't even think she was aware of any of that. And I didn't think she was noticing, because, sometimes teenagers are a little self-absorbed. But it was making me think about, well, maybe some of what I'm doing is helping to model for them, even when I'm just not aware of it. Just like other people are a model for me that they're not aware of it either. So.
Yeah. I think that's super important, particularly the young person point. I totally agree. I remember raising my first son, and sometimes you come at loggerheads with teenagers, and of course it's on you to try and figure out how to disengage and create that. And at one stage when I was just thinking, he listens to nothing I have to say, he's being so defensive, this and that, he burst into tears, and he sort of started just saying, you have no idea how important your opinion of me is, and blah, 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 all this stuff. You're like, whoa. And you're thinking, they don't care. They're not listening. Everything I say, they're going to do the opposite. But in fact, a lot of that is them processing how they feel about themselves.
Right.
And so they put up this artificial shield that really is a very well-crafted shield. It looks real, but that really changed. I almost dealt with him kind of differently from that day forward, because I was like, okay, he's right. I had no idea how much influence I had. And now I've got to take that and hold it as respectfully as I can and figure out how to. So, yeah. So I think the teenagers show a completely different face than what's going on inside.
Yeah. So while it's a personal transformation, there can be influence from a group on a person or people. And you just, like you said, Sylvia, you may not ever realize how much you are influencing them by your actions or your words or those things. So,
and how much we're allowing ourselves to be influenced by those that surround us.
But ultimately, it's our choice, right?
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah, it always comes back to that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That point, that part that you underlined there, Suzanne, it also helps remind me that, yeah, the only one I can change is me and my perspective. And so being in a relationship, oftentimes I'm like, why, how does he see it this way? Like, obviously this is the way to see it, you
Because
know?
I'm stubborn.
But the thing is, it's not up to me to make him see it that way. It's up to me to choose to see him through the eyes of love and compassion and just have patience. And it's okay. We're all at different levels. So, no.
Yeah, I'm on chapter 10, not 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I tell my grandkids that all the time. I said, when they talk about getting into a fight or, you know, being angry with somebody or upset, it's like, who do you have control over? And they know what the response is supposed to be now. And I said, you can only control yourself. You're only responsible for your actions.
What a good leader.
Yeah, you're not responsible for what they do or what they're thinking or how they react, just for how you're reacting to whatever's going on. So I'm constantly trying to remind them of that's what's important for you, is how are you responding to whatever's put in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, super important.
Very important, yeah.
You know what was coming up for me, Sylvia, when you were talking about your experience with your son? Was the chapter of how we all build a house of cards.
Was there a chapter? Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that was really coming up to me was, I learned a while back that children are actually adults before they know and realize that they are adults. And so by taking what you were saying, I'm saying, you know, why can't I be respectful of Noah and Nala's house of cards that they're developing, and not necessarily try to change their house of cards, but just be acceptance of how they're starting to view life, how they're starting to process information and things that are happening. I don't know, just that kind of that struck a chord with me when you were saying that about, especially with that sentence, is you don't know how important you are to me. So it really changes that perspective of realizing that, you know, our kids, they have their house of cards that they're building already.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try and find, Tom once wrote me, I think my kids were like 12 or 13, and we'd been talking about something, and he wrote me a thing about that I've sent to a lot of my friends about parenting. And, you know, it's a lot about, you know, look, about getting out of the way and kind of, you know, in ways that they don't even know you're watching, kind of setting things up to sort of encourage success. It's not like you want to just be like, all right, you go figure it out. I mean, we're here for a purpose, but it's a good, I'll send it around to everybody. I'll find it and send it, because I just felt like there are many times during my parenting journey that I went back and just reread it. And I was like, let me read that again. Make sure I'm on track. And it was quite useful. So I'll send that.
Yeah.
That.
I want to share like a 30-second little story, because it's a feel-good story, at least for me. But so I bought this book, and it's called How to Talk So Your Children Will Listen, and Listen So Your Children Will Talk.
Yeah.
Have you read that one? Are you familiar with it?
Either have read it or I've heard like a podcast on it, something, but yeah.
And so there's little cartoons and whatnot in it showing what not to do and then showing what to do. And so I was reading these to the kids, remember? We were in the car and I was reading the cartoons to them. And then our daughter Nala, who's 6, she's like, Mommy, why are you reading that book? And I'm like, because I want to learn how to be the best parent. And she's like, but you're already a really good parent. She's like, you're always really kind to us all the time. I'm like, oh, baby. I'm like, but I could always be better. So yeah, that was very reassuring to hear that, because I can be hard on myself. So hearing it from my child from our childhood actually really helped. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure you're fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
And then Noah the next day was like, something was happening.
Yeah.
And then Noah's like, Mommy, why aren't you reading the book again?
Why don't you go brush up on a few lessons?
Yeah.
They're so honest and open, right? It's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
You give with one hand and taketh away with another.
Yeah, exactly. Got to keep you humble. Okay, cool. So why don't we move on to the next page here, 151 or 401?
I highlighted something in the middle of, what is these things called in the middle?
Asides.
Asides? A-S-I-D-E? Aside?
Aside.
Okay. And I highlighted, philosophy must first develop the context before science can most effectively develop the content. Content without context eventually paints itself into a little picture corner. That is where traditional science is now, and why its search for a unified theory has stalled. To escape the PMR petri dish, you must eventually come to understand the reality is more than a local rule set, more than a mindless machine. You know, I studied Einstein's his quest of unifying a theory, and then Vanessa sent me something about his last letter to his daughter.
That apparently wasn't written by him, but
Really?
yeah, it got debunked.
Well, don't crush me.
I know. Haters are gonna hate me.
Right. Anyways, it was just about how his last truth was about love, and how love really is that unexplainable element that unifies everyone. So I don't know. Really, you shouldn't have told me that.
I know.
Take it with one hand, take it with the other.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I liked how he said this is the reason why we're learning. What we're learning right now is to provide context to content. So.
Mm-hmm. Anything else on that? Yeah,
I just highlighted literally right under the aside those words that you are on this growth path. Just the understanding that, look, you're on it. It's not like a choice. We're on it. We can choose to be very passive in it, or we can choose to be active in it, but we're on it. It's not like we're like, oh, I'm going to choose to, you're either going to, grow, not grow, devolve, evolve, like something's going to happen. And so the question is, what do each of us want to do with that? And it's just a good reminder that sometimes it can feel like, oh, I'm going to step into the Tom stuff and like try and get better. But it's no, whether you're aware of Tom or his philosophy or anything, we're all on it. And so just knowing that doing nothing is a choice, doing nothing about that knowledge is a choice, or doing something is a choice, but they're kind of equal choices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that part highlighted too.
I like the bottom. We are Om and Om is us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind that Om exists and evolves because of differentiating unique states within its oneness, creating dualities or changes relative to its uniform self, organizing its potentiality to squeeze entity out of its system. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. And again, that we're all really important. Every single being is really important because it's a unique state that Om is experiencing, that we are learning about, right? Simultaneously, all of this at the same time. So fascinating. Yeah, I'm always practicing seeing the big picture just in daily life, especially when out. Even a lot of times it's just driving. I'm driving and I'll just look around and I'll see the planet and how it's populated with all these people, right? And that these are just characters here, the digital information, and that we're so immersed in it that we feel like it's real, but really it's just an opportunity for our growth to learn. But because I'm so indoctrinated into materialism, it's hard for me to really get that. It's just at the intellectual level. But perhaps if I continue to understand that at the intellectual level, it will seep down into the being level. At least that's my hope.
Well said, Vanessa. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Hope so. We'll see. Anything else? So where are we on? Page 152, 402? Anything on there?
No.
Okay, so next page, 153. Did we do that again? You had something you want to share?
Okay, so I highlighted in the aside, as always, open-minded skepticism applied to your own data solves the problem. But you must get out there and get the data before tentative conclusions become actual ones. So I appreciated that. Staying in your little safety bubble is not going to allow you to lower your entropy state. You need to interact with individuals.
Mm-hmm. Go out there and take risks too. Experiment with life while we're here, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Evolve or die.
Yeah.
Okay, 153.
Well, I have highlighted the last paragraph. We humans are part of several ecosystems that sustains us. We must be good citizens and develop and maintain a long-term win-win relationship with each. As aware, bright, sentient entities, each physical and non-physical consciousness is the largest and the most fundamental sustaining system within the capacity of our awareness. Yeah, so again, it reminds us that we are part of the system and we contribute so much. So we just have to try to develop the win-win situation or in any problem that is coming up, trying to find the win-win for each and every one of us.
Yeah, I'd highlighted that too. That's I like what you said about it.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I liked the very last sentence of that paragraph where consciousness is our primary ecosystem to which we belong. NPMR is our biome, our system is our community, physical matter reality is our niche, and Earth is our habitat. I like how he breaks it down like that. But before that, so the second paragraph that starts, consider how important it is that all the cells, yada, yada, yada. The very last sentence in that where he says, although knowledge thrives on separateness, wisdom sees itself as part of a whole. I really liked that because oftentimes in our culture, we use knowledge as power. And we try to use this knowledge to get ahead of everybody and to take advantage of people. But when we're coming from this place of personal power, of wisdom, we see that anything that we have is to be shared and to be given freely to others. Yeah, and come from that mentality of, how can I serve? How can I be? How can I cooperate rather than how can I take? There's a conversation we were having yesterday with this gentleman that we met who is looking to start a nonprofit in South America or Central America. And he was talking about how right now, like here in our civilization, it's all about consumerism. Like we're consumers and we're takers. And he's trying to make this mind shift at a fundamental level to show people how to be givers. And how to be givers. And he had another word for it. How to give and like cooperate or something rather than consume and take. But that's the belief system that we are all part of, is this consumerism, like more, me. Right? So it was interesting because there's so many people around in this world that are wanting to do good, wanting to give back, wanting to start schools or start charities to help, orphans or drug addicts or abused women, whatever it is. And that's really good. What I love about this work is that it's getting to that fundamental cause. Like the root cause is materialism. It's in our being that we feel like we're all separate, that we're materialistic beings that are all divided and separate from one another. But that's not the case. The case is that we're all connected through consciousness, and we're here to help and support and work together, right? Once we can get that understanding at the core of us, then things will really start changing. Otherwise, we're just putting band-aids on all the issues. Yeah. So.
And I think so with materialism, as with other things, the issue is our attachment to certain goals. So like materialism, the attachment is to, you know, getting a nicer house or whatever it is. But that it could also be an attachment to career stuff, like I want to have this, or it could be fame. I want this, and it's the attachment to prescribed set goals that, first of all, might not be based on spiritual principles. But even if they're based on spiritual principles, like my goal is to be the best charity or whatever, it's still an attachment to a fixed goal, meaning we're not open to evolving and realizing that actually that we may have decided that's our goal, but the universe might have other plans for us, or the lessons we need to learn might not be in pursuit of that. And the universe might stop us from achieving even what might seem like a wonderful goal, because that's not your path. That might feed your ego too much, or you might need to learn about sufferings. You might need to get a terrible illness or whatever it is, but it's our attachment to specific goals. And not that you can't also have them, but you have to pursue your goals while also being open to whatever lessons the universe gives you, even if those lessons are barriers to you getting what you think you want. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the main goal that I feel like we've grown up with is that the goal to survive and to compete. And we live in this very competitive culture where it's me against you, us against them, and that just turns into the reality that we have, where, what is it, like 5% of the population owns 90% of the wealth, and it's just really imbalanced. So yeah, it's how do you change that, right? How do you just like wake up one day and be like, oh, well, this isn't actually physical matter reality. I'm not this human avatar where I have to fight my way through life and compete with all the other people here. How do you just wake up one day and understand that? And then I guess you don't. And that's what we're doing, is we're preparing the way for the next generation to understand this at a core fundamental level. And we're doing that through science, which is cool, because science is what, is taught in all the schools. And now our future generation will grow up learning this new science, learning that they are conscious beings at their core. So it's hopeful for our kids. And
planet.
For our planet, yeah, for this reality to be sustained even longer, not to be deleted.
Yeah, but also helpful, I think, yes, totally, but also helpful to realize that the goal isn't to get somewhere, or to achieve something. The goal is to become. And so then that's really separate. So a teeny story. So my younger son, he's totally fine, but he had a little car accident this past week. And he was on his way to a physics exam as a junior, where your grades are really important, and he'd set himself up for success. And so, it would have been really easy using traditional thinking to be like, oh my God, he had a car accident, and he's got his physics exam, and his grades are due, and he's gonna go to college. And instead, I genuinely was able to be like, it's okay, babe, you just gotta learn your lesson. Like, what's the lesson in this? And, and by being relaxed, of course, the school was totally supportive. The police was really nice. The lady he rear-ended was like, everybody was lovely. And, at the end of the day, I was like, this is amazing. This is actually a pretty good day. The day my son got into a car accident and was super challenged for his physics exam. So if you sort of can focus on, if you're focusing on whatever the goal is, like I have to get an A on my physics exam, then that's the goal is I have to become who I'm supposed to become. And you can then take very different responses to each individual thing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Your attitude changes dramatically if you take that approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to share another quick story, but I think we got to go back to the book. Okay, what are we on? 153. Anything else before we go on? Oh yeah, look at the third paragraph.
On 153?
Yeah, on 153, 403, where it's the third paragraph starts with, let's look at some examples. And then the last, like third to last sentence, do you notice a consistency in behavior here that tells us something about ourselves? If people understood the big picture within their consciousness system, the big picture within their physical system would be obvious and earn their utmost respect. They would naturally see themselves and all others, human and otherwise, as full partners in a shared experience of existence. Yeah. And then even the next paragraph too, if the cancer, the parasites, or the people understood the relationship that they have with the whole, possessed a free will, and were intelligent enough to do something about it, they would first control and then reverse their own self-destructive behavior. They would work to change the long-term lose-lose situation they're generating because of their lack of awareness, and would develop a symbiotic win-win relationship with the larger system that sustains them. Yeah, I love that, because that's big picture understanding right there. When we understand at the big picture that we are conscious beings and we're here to evolve together, then we start taking care of the big picture here in this physical matter reality, which is our planet, each other, all the critters. But it comes from the top down to understand, you know, the biggest picture, and then siphon it down. I like that. Take a picture of that, put it on my wall. Okay, should we move on to 154? Anything on 154?
Lots.
Lots, yeah. What's the first thing that stood out on that page?
So I like the at the top of the page, I think third sentence that starts with "most of us know." That we must constantly expand effort to form win-win relationships with other individuals. That realization is a good start at locating the bottom rung of the greater ecological hierarchy. And this is the first step to, towards being a fully responsible individual. And I think just that highlights again for me, it's so easy to feel like we want to convince someone of something, or we want to even help someone in a particular, we want them to become, even if it's their good intentions there, but you know what you're really looking for is that mutual respect, that win-win, rather than I can help you or whatever it is. I thought that was a really useful way to think about it.
Yeah, that I can help you attitude is a slippery slope for sure, because that's that inferiority superiority dynamic that can come into play unexpectedly, the sneaky little ego, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And also it's that attitude of, even if you are like, oh, I can help you, the other person can really take offense to that too and be like, well, what's wrong with me? Are you insinuating that there's something wrong with me and I need to be fixed, right? Rather than coming from a place, like you said, of accepting the house that they've built. Yeah, that paragraph, I really liked to, a little bit further in that paragraph where he says, growing up seems to be nothing more than achieving a series of ever widening perspectives. Don't quit prematurely before you have fulfilled your full growth potential. Outgrow your belief traps and begin to enjoy the magnificence of your true heritage. As a chip from the old conscious book. I like that, your true heritage, right? Because often we're like, oh, you know, this is my culture and I'm proud of my culture. I mean, we do that. And but we stop there and we identify with that culture. But when we're identifying with that culture, what about everybody else that's not part of that culture? You know? But he's saying your true heritage, then we can begin to see everybody that's walking on this planet as part of our culture, the human race.
Yeah, when you look at it this way, even patriotism has a negative connotation to it.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. Because you exclude everybody else that's not part of that.
Right.
Same thing with religion.
Oh, yeah.
That's obvious.
Yeah.
That's why Tom's always talking about, focus on the similarity rather than the differences. And it's the same thing with us. We're studying this philosophy, this idea, and then to find the similarity that links us with everybody, with all different religions and different spiritual teachings, to really focus on how we're all alike, not to focus on how it's different. Like, oh, you guys, Krishna, you guys believe in this little blue guy that lives on this planet, Golaka Vindava, like, come on. And that's just very egotistical. But to instead find the similarity, well, their philosophy says that they really believe in reincarnation, that we keep coming back and we keep evolving. That's a similar thing that we can connect with. So just always focusing on the similarity. I like that when you said that.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's what connects us too. That first thing is finding what we have in common, right? Like if you ever travel the world and you meet somebody, if I'm in Australia and I meet somebody from Vancouver, immediately we're like, oh, we have that in common, and then we can connect. So yeah, we strive to see what we have in common. It's something we can use as a tool for connection.
That's a great way to communicate with people as well. Like even say at a restaurant, and you like something, both of you like something, like you're up on the buffet table and you see someone who's picking out broccoli and says, "Oh, you like broccoli too, eh?" And that will really start a conversation, right? I was told that it's the environment that creates the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that. It's the environment that creates the conversation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay, what else do we have here? 154, baby, you had something? You got a bracket?
Square bracket.
Yeah, it was just really nothing really important. So, no.
I have highlighted something in the middle. At the end of the second paragraph, which starts with every being as it evolves on each level of its existence must learn how to use and explore the possibilities within that level to improve its profitability. AUM is no different. It's kind of nice to observe this analogy, how, like we are part of this existence, and the same, we have the qualities of AUMs, we possess the same qualities, but yet we're responsible for our own evolution, just so we can contribute to the oneness.
Yeah, deep. Oh, did our fearless leaders go wonky? Oh, no, there you are. Oh, there you go.
Oh, I finished.
Okay. Anything else before we move on to 155? No? Okay. So 155 or 405, I think. Yeah, 405. Anything there?
I got the last sentence, and it says, "We can reasonably define an immediate purpose as well as a larger purpose and a larger purpose, even if we're not absolutely sure about the details of the larger purpose of our larger purpose."
That's so awesome. I can't find it. What page is that on?
It's 405, the very last sentence on that page.
Is it 156 as well?
155.
Not in my book.
Okay, that's why I couldn't find it. Thank you.
I missed that one.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel sometimes like I could sit and think about like one sentence for
For a long time.
I know, I was just doing that.
I think that's why I keep reading it over and over and over again, just to say, I don't quite get it, and you keep reading it, I don't get it, and then, oh, okay, maybe that's what it means.
Well, I was just looking at what you just read. We can reasonably define an immediate purpose, as well as a larger purpose and a larger purpose, even if we're not absolutely sure about the details of the larger purpose of our larger purpose. And I was going to back it up. So the beginning of that paragraph, he goes, I like the lab rat and consciousness transmuting bacteria options best, but I will be the first to admit that I might not be totally aware of everything Om does all day at the office. Okay. Yeah, we don't have the details of the top level. I like
this sound.
Daniel's meeting.
Sorry, I gotta mute my.
Delicious crunchiness sound.
Oh, good.
Pass
Sorry.
the Cheetos. Pass the Cheetos.
Yeah, so just further up on that page 155, I guess it's like the second paragraph there where he starts, does that make us lab rats as well as partners and pieces of the larger system? Just the last sentence there, he's like, fortunately, Om is not likely to be as self-absorbed and disrespectful to its partners as humans are. And I just feel like that's what is the problem, is that we're very self-centered and self-absorbed. We always make it about ourselves, and that's what keeps us stuck in this little picture and prevents us from actually understanding our purpose in the big picture, is that we make it about me. Yeah, and just having that awareness helps me to then do my best to try and shift it and then make it about other. Yeah, it's funny. So we were looking at this model. I can send a link if anybody's interested in it. It's called the 5 chairs. I think, Bojana, you were there when we showed it to the Maple Ridge Conscious Connection.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's the 5 chairs. There's a TED Talk on it. And it basically explains like different points of understanding your reality, in a sense. She doesn't say it that way, but that's how we see it. And so she says the first chair is like the red chair. And when you're in the red chair, you're blaming everybody else. It's like you're the victim and everybody else is wrong. That one is the jackal, right? It's like attack mode. And then the next one is the yellow chair. When you're in yellow chair, you turn the red chair in on yourself and you just blame yourself. What's wrong with me? I always mess up. Oh, I'm such an idiot. And so that's the hedgehog, because the hedgehog, has got the spikes and is protective. It was very protective of itself, making it about itself. And then the next one is the green chair, right? So the green chair is the meerkat. So the meerkat can stand for hours at a time and just be very observant and mindful and watch. And so when you're in this chair, you're observing your thoughts, you're observing your actions, you're not just reacting, but you're being very mindful. So that's the green chair. And then from there, it goes to the blue chair, which is the dolphin. And the dolphin is all about having fun and enjoying. It's very intelligent, right? So when you're in that place, you're very self-aware and you can consciously choose your life and co-create. And then the final chair is the purple chair. And this is the giraffe. So the giraffe has the largest heart out of all the land mammals. So it's very compassionate. And obviously it has the longest neck, so it sees the big picture. Anyway, so we practice this model and we share it. And what's funny is that yesterday we were having a little bit of conflict, but kind of playful. And then, I didn't tell you this, but then Nala goes to me, Mommy, say to him, giraffe. And I was like, what? But she's never heard this model. I've never said it to her. And then she's like, yeah, tell him giraffe. And I'm like, why? That's weird. She's like, no, just say it, giraffe. And I'm like, but it helped me to remember, like, oh yeah, like I'm making it about me here. I need to have the big picture and come from love. So yeah, I just thought that was really cool.
Was that when we came home, Noah and I?
No, we were in the living room. Yeah, you were with Noah, but then we were like kind of bickering a little bit. Anyway, so I just
What's the name of this chair model?
It's called the 5 chairs. Yeah, and I'll send you guys the link. It's really awesome. The TED Talk she does is short and.
I just looked it up. It looks like it's by a woman, the name of Louise Evans.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super cool lady. Okay, a little aside there. Sorry, guys. We're almost done this chapter. Maybe we'll wrap it up with this chapter and we'll go on to chapter 11 next time. See how I did that? Yeah.
Bobby, you know people in high places, man.
I think the next chapter requires a its own session, though. It's very complicated, I think.
Yes, it
I
is.
believe so.
I read chapter 12. It was only a 2-pager.
Maybe we can throw that one in too.
Yeah, we'll throw that one in too. Okay. Anything else on 155 then? Talks about Jessica Rabbit.
155, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm good.
Okay, 156 or 406.
I have a lot here.
Carry on.
Okay, so I highlighted the third paragraph, and I really enjoy his analogy of the colon and the anus. And I asked Vanessa, what would you like to be, the colon or the anus? Because we may be the vagaries, how do you pronounce that?
Vagaries.
Of evolution, be no more than analogical equivalent of Om's intestinal bacteria, or perhaps more colorful, Om's colon or anus. And as such, we should expect to have no appreciation for the ultimate activities of the whole, such as a polite dinner table conversation. In that case, we keep on keeping on because that is what we do. Our perspective is too small to see the bigger picture that connects us to a whole that exists beyond our comprehension. Have a laugh, or at least a chuckle, and let it go. Self-importance, the hallmark of the ego, is always self-destructive. So really understanding that, even if we don't get it, big deal. Continue to plug on. Some of my mentors in businesses, people are always talking about, is this an economic cycle? Is this a debt cycle? And then Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett are like, doesn't matter if the tide's with us or against us, we just keep swimming. And that theory for them have held true. They're some of the richest men in the world in terms of just being very understanding that things are going to happen. You can't prepare for everything, but the point is just keep going. And for myself, when I was a young man, I was in trouble with the law when I was younger. And a family friend who owned a law firm, he took me out for lunch, and he said, as in the closing of the lunch, he goes, remember this, son, the secret in life is when you get knocked down 13 times, you get back up 14. Keep going, just keep going. And that really resonated with me. So I really appreciated his humor when he threw that in. Is like, look, for all we know, we could be the fingernail of Om. What does it matter? As long as you continue to push forward and have at least the intent to understand, but continue to move forward, lowering your entropy and evolving as a free will individual, then what more can you ask of yourself?
Yeah. You. And then I like the following paragraph where he says that, yeah, and I also like, sorry, in that paragraph that you just shared, baby, where he says, have a laugh or at least a chuckle and just let it go. That's what helps me oftentimes, is just to lighten up, just lighten the fuck up. Don't take everything so seriously. And actually, Sylvia, what you shared with us a few weeks ago or months ago, that thought comes into my mind sometimes too when I'm like stressed out or thinking about one problem. And that was what he said to you. And when obviously, you were going through a lot of challenges physically. And he said, even if you die, I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's not a big deal,
That's a big theme with him lately with me. I'm like, are you trying to tell us something? Yeah.
Yeah. But it does. It sheds light on everything, right? Like, it's not. You'll come back, It's not. And that's what I say to the kids, too. They're like, but mommy, like, sometimes when they get really scared and they're like, well, what happens if I die? And I'm like, well, it's okay. You'll come back. You'll play again. You just keep coming back, and you always get new chances.
Yeah.
I like this next paragraph, and it goes, it goes, most humans and most sentient non-physical beings as well are delusional which is ego bound, because they live in a small perspective reality with small perspective knowledge and even less understanding. There is no privileged groups. Everyone must start at the bottom and pull themselves up by their bootstraps. That is how consciousness reduces its entropy, by growing up, maturing, dropping limitations of vision and understanding, and shedding ego and delusion, becoming all it can be. It was really powerful, profound. I kept reading and reading and reading and rereading this one. It was, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like this one too, because I feel that one of the things I've been hung up with, maybe other people have, is it's really hard. Like if you take someone like Tom versus a mass murderer, like it's hard not to feel like Tom's better than the mass murderer. And, you know, and also then we can each get into that, because if we have whatever level of understanding we have, if there's someone with a lower level of understanding, we can feel like, you know, even if we're trying not to feel a little superior or whatever. And this, what I like about this is that it really emphasizes, look, you know, wants to evolve and grow. So whatever we are right this minute, it wants to be better a minute from now. And so it almost resets everybody at every moment. And so if there's a mass murderer that's making a lot of progress and I'm not, or I'm regressing, that mass murderer is doing more for the evolution of consciousness than I am.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? So I think this notion that there's no privileged group, we all have to start at the bottom and pull ourselves up. Wherever we are, our job now is to help the greater consciousness evolve. And so, yeah. Anyway, I don't know if that makes sense, but it helps the whole ego thing, I think.
What I do in academia is the same way. I train teachers and fellow directors to recognize that there is a objective perspective of marking, but then there's also an holistic element where student A is already an 85% student, but only grows by 10% to get 95, where student B comes in at a 45% and ends up at an 88%. Which of those students was able to extract more value out of the course?
Yeah.
Student B.
Similar. Or which student should the teacher feel better about their teaching skills with?
So I often say to students when they're in my office, I'm like, look, I can't fill a sponge that's already filled. I need you to come try. So therefore, check your ego at the door and come in and be willing to learn. Because if you knew it already, you'd already be working. So the paragraph that continued after that goes, your ego in its reaction to fear insulates your delusion from reality with an array of self-protective and self-justifying rationalizations. I battle this every frickin' day. The only way out of that trap is by making a serious effort to outgrow your limitations and overcome your fear by developing a big picture understanding of existence. A personal big picture understanding, improving the quality of your consciousness, and developing your capacity to love are all interrelated, mutually reinforcing aspects of successfully evolving conscious beings. And then it says that by itself defines the nature of your being and determines the purpose of your existence. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. It was pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
One of the meditations my friend Ellen suggests is to just say, I let go, I let go, I let go, I let go, which I find quite useful at times, particularly if I'm feeling stressed out, you know, just I let go, like letting go of attachments, letting go of ego, letting go of fear, but even just making it non-specific, like I let go, I let go, I let go. Mm-hmm. And that, reading this makes me feel like I let go, I let go, I let go.
Yeah. What helps me too sometimes, just my own personal experiences. Sometimes our daughter who's 6, Nala, she won't get something like a cookie, or she won't get to watch TV or something. And she'll be like, oh my God, my life is horrible. I hate this. I can't stand it. And she'll just have like, and I'm just watching her. I'm like, I do that sometimes, don't I? I'll make it all about me over like the smallest little thing and blow it out of proportion. And it's really neat to witness it and to see. And I'm like, that's totally me, but I can see it in her, and it helps me to remember in those times, like, dude, you're blowing things out of proportion. It's not a big deal. Even if you die, it's not a big deal, you know? Really, everything is out of proportion in light of the big picture.
That reminds me of that Buddhist concept of suffering comes from attachment. And it isn't that you didn't get the cookie that causes the suffering. It's the fact that you wanted it and you didn't get it. That's where the suffering comes from. You made up in your mind that you had to have this thing and it didn't happen. And so now you're having suffering because of that. And I try to remember that it's the attachment to certain ideas or people or outcomes, and that when they don't happen, that's going to cause me suffering because I'm attached to that idea or person or thing or whatever. And trying to let go of the attachment is, you know, that's something to focus on, although that can be very hard.
Useful at the same time.
Yes.
Like each pain is each discomfort, it's a lesson for us.
Right.
As painful that it is, let's just be happy about the benefit of it.
Yeah, because it prepares you. That's what, even like my son, he's the type of kid that, like, you know, he gets really upset if he breaks a glass in the kitchen, and now all of a sudden we had a car that was pretty totaled. And, you know, and I just said to him, well, I know this is hard in this moment, but this prepares you for bigger disappointments. Like, you have to have, you know, I was like, to you as a 17-year-old, this is a really big disappointment, but, you know, later in life, you'll put it in a different context because you'll have more of them, but they're really, really, really important to experience so that.
And not only does it's not that it just sets you up for bigger disappointments, but how many times has something even bigger and better happened because of what you viewed as an initial disappointment? So you didn't get what you wanted in the moment about something, but later on it turned out like, wow, that was a really good thing because now this other thing has happened and that's even better.
For sure.
So, I mean, I've had that happen over and over where it's like, oh, I didn't get that job. I didn't get that promotion. And then because I didn't, something even better happened later.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh.
That's what kind of happened with us as I was dating somebody for like a week. And then the day that he was supposed to come with me to this dinner, he just ghosted, like he was gone. Like I called him, texted him, he wasn't even found. I was like, what the hell? And if I would have like wallowed in my self-pity, I wouldn't have gone out. But instead I was like, no, whatever, I'm good. And I ended up going out to the dinner party that we were supposed to go to. And then I met Robert. That's where Bobby was, right? So because that didn't happen, I was able to meet the love of my life, my fiance, you know? So exactly, it's the expectation. There's a saying that says the only thing getting you in your way is your expectation of how you think things should be.
Right.
Yeah. So just trusting the process, allowing things to unfold. Not trying to manipulate and control and make things happen the way we know is best, but just trusting. Okay, what are we on? We got the last page here. What stood out there?
Everything.
Going back to what we were talking about, similarities, I like how he draws the similarity of eating the metaphorical apple from the tree of knowledge carried with it the potential for expanded evolutionary success or failure. Self-awareness and knowledge that comes with it was the beginning of Om's great experiment and our great struggle. Because the story of of Adam and Eve and the apple is self-awareness to be similar to God, knowing all and having that free will. And I appreciated his ability to draw that similarity to religion, because I was raised in a very religious family where I learned at an age where I'm like, yeah, I actually don't necessarily need to go to church to have God, where it seemed that as I was being raised up, I needed to go to church to be with God. And I didn't think that. And so by the time I was about 14, 15, I was like, I'm good. I actually don't need to go to church. I can pray right now if I wanted to and be with God. So I appreciated what he was able to do in drawing that similarity in terms of religious elements.
I think that's a huge thing for a lot of people, is learning that you have a direct path to your God versus requiring an intermediary that sometimes religions try to force upon you. It's like, well, you can't get to God if you don't go through me. You know, I'm your path.
Right.
So learning and growing to the point where you realize you don't need that and you can get there on your own in your own way. I think that's a huge growth, right? You know, for anybody who comes to that realization.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's control. Like you can't get through God unless you go through me.
Right. And
Yeah.
you can't get there unless you have to do these actions, and you have to give us this money, and you have to act in this way, and you can't act in that way, and just the whole prescribed. Let us tell you how to live your life exactly. So at the end of it, you get to go to heaven, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't do everything we say,
Yeah.
well, guess what? You can't go there, and you'll be punished for, you know,
You're
all
going to
eternity.
hell.
Yeah. So the realization that you don't have to do all of that or go through these people in order to get where you want to be is that's a huge realization when, if you've been indoctrinated into a particular religion from the time you were born,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's that's a big thing to overcome.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I did it when I was really young, and it felt wrong. Like, well, why do I have to be in a certain building to converse with God? I was like, no, I can do it right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where in the Bible does it say that?
So true.
Mm-hmm.
But I really appreciated how he was to draw that, because you know, that was some of the things that stuck as a child when you're 6 or 7 years old, is being told about, you know, this tree of knowledge and the apple and what it's about to do, and then you seeing here where Tom is obviously cognizant of the fact that, you know, there's going to be people in religion that's going to be reading this, and he's, instead of focusing on the dissimilarities, he's focusing on the similarities, in terms of saying, look, this is that metaphorical apple where we are now becoming knowledgeable beings, self-aware, individuated pieces of digital consciousness that's trying to evolve. And now this is how has begun, and this is the great struggle that all of us as individual pieces here in this are trying to do for the larger system, analogous to what, you know, individuals in religion are doing to really, you know, move towards God. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember as a child being very filled with fear, because I obviously wasn't good enough, and I was going to be, you know, I was going to hell, and it was just, there's a lot of fear-based, you know, a lot of fear going on in these religions, like, hey, you're not doing it right, and you're just not going to make it. And the punishment is not just for a little while, it's like for eternity. And I just remember being very fearful over some of those ideas and thoughts.
They were scaring you so much that you had to follow them, or
Exactly.
Well, that's what some religions actually just are putting into the believers' minds. Like, I attended Benedict choir and one of the churches, and basically we went there only for the choir. But I really didn't like the preaching, because every few minutes the priest was saying, "Fear the Lord, fear the Lord." I'm thinking, what the hell is this? Why must I be fearing the Lord? And so many people, you know, have to listen to it every Sunday. Fear the Lord, fear the Lord. This is really deeply implemented in their minds. So they have to be afraid of something.
Mm-hmm. I'm supposed to love the Lord, not fear it.
Scary. It's really scary that so many adults, you know, become voluntarily subject themselves to this influence.
So, I mean, it's rather ironic from one point of view that we're just, instead of we're just focusing on the thing that we're trying to overcome. We're focusing on the fear of through religion, as opposed to we're really supposed to be trying to identify our fears and overcome them. But instead, we've set up these organizations where all they're doing is instilling fear in you. So it's like you're actually going farther away from what it is you're supposed to be accomplishing.
It is easier to manipulate the fearful population, to manipulate them into giving them money.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Going to hell if you don't give me money.
Oh. Well, it looks like we have come to the end of chapter 10. So, I guess that's it. Hey, maybe you finished the last of that. Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and do our closing circle then? Final thoughts, comments. Daniel, you want to start?
Sure, I got more clarity from listening to what you all said, and so thank you. I love some of your quotes there that you pulled out from the book there, Rob.
Thanks, brother.
Things I didn't even remember reading, so it was cool. Thanks.
The square bracket technique.
There you go.
Yeah, right. It was probably when I was dozing on and off, so.
Suzanne, you want to go?
I wrote down, I'm going to take a look at that TED Talk on the 5 chairs. I like that idea. But I think for me, the sentence I highlighted last in this chapter was the feeling of sadness follows the caring of love. And for me, I think that's important to focus on, because sometimes I do feel, I look at things, some of the choices that not just me, but other people make, and I can become very sad about it. Like, that's, it's this real ego struggle. That's not how you should be doing it. That's not the way. And it's like, you got to let them go. But it's feeling sadness because you can see somebody not, maybe they're just on a very difficult path. And there's going to be a lot of lessons for them.
Have you guys watched Inside Out, that cartoon?
Yeah.
Animation? There's so much in there that's helpful for adults as well.
Yeah. And have you guys watched A Dog's Purpose?
Not yet.
No.
Bojana.
All of you guys gotta watch this.
I cried last night.
It's on Netflix too.
I looked over and Vanessa wasn't crying.
What is it called? The Dog's Purpose?
A Dog's Purpose.
A Dog's Purpose, or just Dog's Purpose. Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Am I gonna cry?
I cried. I'm a very sensitive man.
It's a beautiful, beautiful movie, and it's fun, and it's cute, and it's all good feelings. Definitely recommend it.
Jerry.
Hey, Jerry.
Morning.
Did you read? Have you guys ever read Racing in the Rain, which is about a dog that believes that he's going to be reincarnated, and this is his last life as a dog, and he believes that his next life is going to be as a human?
Oh yeah. Oh,
I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful book. It's called Racing in the Rain. And, and he's basically like, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to try and learn that lesson for when I become a human next time. And anyway, it's beautifully written. It's like an easy, it's not a deep, it's deep, but it's not a thick read. It's a beautiful light read. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'll check that out. Yeah, Racing in the Rain. One last one, but for books is Illusions by Richard Bach. You guys read that?
Mm-hmm.
That's the Jonathan Livingston Seagull dude?
Yeah, it's the same guy, yeah. Illusions is another really short read, but it's really fun, and it's deep and stuff too. Yeah. So, Bojana, did you want to?
Well, this was a very enlightening chapter altogether. It's kind of nice to know that we are just part of this big process that we contribute to. I'm glad we didn't go into the next chapter. I can postpone it and maybe reread it. It was very difficult. So Yeah, this chapter was like every single sentence was so deep that I can like you said, you know, I can just reread it and just get more and more out of the sentence each time. Yeah, thank you very much. I really like that.
Thank you. Sylvia?
I would just echo what everybody else says. I feel the same way as all of you.
Right.
Oh, and I sent everybody those parenting words of parenting advice from Tom. I just put it on the WhatsApp thread.
Thank you. Can't wait to check that out. Baby?
Just thank you guys. What a awesome way to recharge for the upcoming week.
Yeah. Yeah. Does this time work? I know, Sylvia, you'll be with Tom himself next Sunday, so you won't need us.
Yeah. Well, I always need you, but I just not available.
We need you to be there so you can pass on to us what you have gathered from this.
Yeah.
Any new insights or particularly colorful stories or
Okay, I'll be on the lookout.
We're sending you there.
Thank you.
Does this time work for you guys next week then, the rest of you? Sunday 8 o'clock?
Sunday?
Yeah. Okay.
It's Father's Day. I don't know if that matters to anyone.
Not over here. What? Oh, for you. I was thinking my own daddy issues and stuff. Yeah, but.
What about me?
But yeah, for you, baby, of course. We'll let, yeah. Yeah, so, okay, so that's good. Sunday at 8?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, awesome. Thanks, guys.
Right.
Sylvia, have so much
day,
fun.
everybody.
Okay.
Thank you
Bye.
again.
Goodbye.